Hello everyone and welcome to another Red Valkyrie Presents. I'm of course Shae the Red with the hidden camera, which means you know it's gotta at least be kind of good. It's gotta be like a little good if the camera's off, right? And I'm here with my amazing co-host CY.borg. Valkyrie, how are you doing tonight?
Doing awesome. Let me tell you guys, I watched the evolution of this costume over the last several hours. It striking. That's all. Right.
That's awesome.
It's been a day. It's been a day of like, how in the hell do I make this thing work? And part of it didn't because, you know, it wouldn't be last minute cosplay if part of it didn't work. But what did work, I'm happy with, so it'll be good. Before we get to that, Eric, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you to the both of you for having me. Thanks to your audience for tuning in and giving me their time of day. It's a Sunday, so I know it's supposed to be a rest day for most of you, but thank you for being here.
Oh man, Eric, we love having you on. It's always so much fun to talk, and we always have a really great discussion. So I'm super excited.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So without further ado, let's do this reveal. Oh, that's the wrong one. This is the right one. There we go.
That's the right one.
I know how to run this. I swear it's fine. All right, 3, 2, 1, and
yeah, that's the
bam.
That is so cool.
Let's wait for your camera to focus a little. Wow,
I know,
that
my
is
camera's
artifacting.
like, what just happened?
That is so freaking cool.
Thank you.
Did you say last minute? Are you kidding me? That looks
I did this
great.
Today, all of it. Yeah, all of this was
That
today.
is so awesome. Shae, that is great.
you.
Thank you. I am honored. I am flattered. Thank you for taking the time.
So I got to show you the part that didn't work because it almost did, but it was the attachment part that was not cooperating. I made the things to go on the side.
Holy cow.
Yeah, but they wouldn't stay attached.
A for effort. I dig it a lot.
See,
what we have now is pretty much a great spectacle, so I'll take it. Gorgeous. Well done.
It's crazy enough, I feel like. And it's like the side fins would have been great, but
yeah. That would have been just the icing on top, but as is, this is great.
Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you. That's amazing.
All right, so we're here because thank you, Frog G. I appreciate you. We're here because somebody sneakily launched ARC ATHENA 2, and then we found out.
Was it sneaky? I didn't know if it was sneaky or not.
We were trying. We were like, hey, make sure you let us know. And you're like, yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, it's live. And it's like, Eric. We talked about this, sir.
Well, here's the thing. We just talked about this offline before you went live. I poured all of my skill points into a specific other tree. Self-promotion was not one of them. I'm going to look back after this is all said and done and just be like, oh, I could have done that so much better. So it's enough for me that you guys didn't completely excommunicate me and had me back on again. So thank you.
Oh, please.
I didn't think of it as sneakily. I didn't think of it as like stealth launching. I just thought like in contrast to how everybody else does it, I don't do it as well, right?
We call it the soft launch.
That's a good way of saying it.
We don't like soft launches. Soft launches are not as, because you know when you have that launch on a channel, you get all of the fun and the hype and the.
Oh sure.
Yeah,
I was I'll tell you this, just as an aside, I was so exhausted on book 1's launch. Like for a week, that's all that was just constant, like, hey, you need to keep this energy up. And it's because I was told by a lot of people who were successful in this space, hey, that's actually what you need to do. But I am a different kind of individual. And I'm like, there is like, after I expend the energy on day 1, I don't even want to think about it for the next few days. But that's not optimal for something like this, right? So rather than jump out the gate and completely spend everything that I have, I thought, at this 30 days, let me ease into it. Let me get used to campaigning again because that's not in my nature. So you guys are very patient with me. Thanks.
That's fair. That's fair enough. I mean, honestly, you could probably launch and then like not do a single interview and still just kill it because you have amazing artwork and amazing storytelling. From what I've heard from everyone, I mean, Eric is saying it's his favorite book
I saw
most
Eric's
favorite.
review, and holy mackerel, was that
Yeah.
incredibly flattering. That was crazy. What I love the most about it is it takes me back into being a comic book reader, being on the other side of the table, and anticipating with my friends potential things that can happen whenever you run into a new series. I remember seeing, I mean, I know they weren't new characters, but I remember when they launched the Adjectiveless X-Men, when they launched like Wildcats, where I was like, where is this going to go? I am so hyped to learn more about these characters, the potential things that are being set up here. And in Eric's case, he was like, I love this character. And do you know how humbling and like, you know, the rush that I got when I hear somebody go, this character, I want him to do something with that. I hope something happens with it. That was so cool. So thank you to
That's
him.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
super cool. It makes me more excited. So, Eric had asked us if we had read ARC ATHENA 1 yet. And because Sai and I want to make sure when we do our reviews that you guys are getting genuine reaction, we haven't. And I don't know
Yeah.
if you understand. Audience out there, do you know how freaking painful that is to have, like, I know it's going to be great, and I can't read it yet because we are not ready to do reviews yet, and I really want to freaking read this damn, like, I'm about to just say screw it and read it anyway.
Hey, it's not preventing you from doing that. I'm saying I want
I
to
know,
come into
but-
it fresh.
You guys
We'll see.
do whatever you need to. My only request is that you give it, you know, as you know, in as far as criticism and being critical is concerned, go through it, because all I can do, what I get from it, speaking very selfishly, is just have a better understanding of where my audience is coming from. You know, like,
Oh,
hey, I
absolutely.
know that I'm 5 issues deep, now drawing the 6th, right? And there's not really much I can do to course correct, but what I'm looking for is long term, because this isn't the only time I'm going to end up visiting these characters. So it's like, hey, this is a good, you know, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but in a couple of times, I'll just be on. Like when I had my wife read it, she was like, that's nice, and I'm like, oh, because she's very critical. She's a storyteller
"That's
herself. She's an
cute."
artist herself, and she was like, what, you could have done a little bit more.
Oh, jeez.
And I was like, this is not good, you know.
This is, I already love it.
But I would
I
love
like
that.
this-
I would love that from everybody. It's just to be
I
like,
like that she
I
read
remem-
it, and she's like, oh.
yeah, that's
Oh.
nice.
Then you're like,
Pat me on the
"Aw."
head and set me on, you know, set me on an errand. There's this one guy, and it sticks out in my mind because it came off as how they were presenting it was criticism. They were like, oh, it's too much action for the first one, and I kind of got bored near the end because it was too much action, and I was like, I don't know if that's a real criticism. Like, too much action in the beginning, you know? I was like, I'll take that. If that's the worst that you can throw at me is too much action, we got 5 more of
Right.
these things. Let's, you
Well,
know?
I mean, but that's the thing, is sometimes the criticism that you get is actually, you're like, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad. That's how it should
Right.
be. Like,
That was
I'm
the point.
hoping, I'm hoping when I do my horror anthology, people read it and go, yeah, that was really unsettling. Be like, good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's why I was
Exactly.
going for that. They're
That's
like,
it.
I didn't know that I wanted to keep reading. I'm like, oh, I did
Yeah.
good. I did real good
Yeah,
then.
yeah, yeah.
Like, did you
That's awesome.
finish the book, or did you put it up to the side and go, I don't really feel like doing this right now? Like, because both of those I'm okay with.
Yeah. I'll take it.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm super excited. I want to have us go through this.
Yes.
So should we watch your trailer first?
We
I feel
can.
like-
Absolutely.
I feel like we should. I feel like you kind of have to, right? I mean, you put all the work into the trailer. We might as well watch it.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
playing in the background for me right now, so
Right.
this hand is right there. A little blurry, but
Size watched it multiple times.
That's so like short and sweet, and I gotta say that that sound effect in the beginning,
Yeah.
They're like, and be like, oh,
It's pretty
terrible.
interesting. We did I'll give you some background on that, some behind the scenes. We did a very short teaser trailer for book 1. And I think my production designer slash, collaborator, Leo, he did this trailer with me as well. And he was under the impression that it was going to be a teaser. And so I said, no, we're just going to use it for the launch campaign. He's like, no, I need to do something else. I need to do something a little bit more substantial, like we did for campaign 1. And I said, I don't think that's necessary, because campaign 1, as far as the trailer was concerned, helped set up the tone and sort of the texture that goes along with that book. But with this one, because we've kind of done a little bit of heavy lifting at the front end with book 1, we don't have to do as much. We just need to come in and sort of, tease and titillate. Right? We don't have to explain everything that's happening in the book. We don't have to do as much sort of like bricklaying, so to speak. And
Right.
so he was like, okay, if you're okay with the short trailer. And I love that short trailer. I love that short trailer.
I mean, it's really kind of, it makes you feel like there's a lot left. Like, I have so many questions on what just
Yeah.
happened. And I really just need to know more.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the point, right? That you would hope that that is the entire exercise, to give you just enough for you to say, what in the heck? And if you had book 1 as a point of reference, you would be like, I know who that is. I know that character. I hope that that's not what it's hinting at. So that to me is really interesting.
I muted Shae, by the way.
Sorry, I typed. I'm not
That's
allowed
okay.
to type. Froggy says it's not the size of the trailer, it's how you use it.
Well said. Well said.
Wonderful.
Well said.
All right, so let us know a little bit more about book 2's campaign. Like, what are we getting?
Yeah, sure. What's great about book 2, at least is that I learned a lot from book 1, which is, number 1, just how to run Indiegogo as a whole. Oh my gosh. You don't even know. I thought it was as simple as, you're like, we're going to press this live button. And as soon as I did, people who were kind enough to come by, be really enthusiastic and supportive of the whole endeavor, was like, Eric, did you ever think of, and just lay it out, like there's a laundry list of the things that I didn't think of for my first campaign. And one of the key things was just make the selections as simple as possible, easy to hit this button, and we're good to go. And then the other one was, I have 4 more of these, and I need to have some concept of longevity, so I can't draw myself into a corner where I'm drawing more of the perks than I am the actual book, because if anything, if I had to choose, I want to get these books out the door. So if there's a theme in as far as the tiers are concerned, it's the idea of making things as lean and as simple as possible, and to give people as easy access to, oh, I didn't get that first book, I want that now, or I want to continue supporting at a certain level, and here it is laid out in as plainly as possible. So that first tier is everything that is book 2, which is the limited edition cover, the standard edition cover, and then the black and white artist edition, and that's what you see in the featured, right? And that goes out to you via Iconic Comics, and I'm actively, this is to you guys and everybody that's in the room, I'm actively trying to design what that box looks like, because apparently people really love that Iconic Comics box with their branding on it.
Yes.
I'm excited for it to be a part of that, to at the very least be able to contribute to them. Working on that behind the scenes. Let's see if I can get it done so that they can actually get it manufactured and sent out to people this time around. But if not with this one, definitely book 3. And then as you go, it starts to become, like I said, as straightforward and as lean as possible. So the next tier is just for the standard edition. That's what SE stands for, right? And then the one right after that is the limited edition, of which there are only 500. And then thereafter, it's probably, a combination of both, minus the artist edition. And for those who came by after they heard all the hype for book 1, as the both of you have been so gracious about sort of spreading the word, you can get the standard edition and standard edition of both books 1 and book 2. That's available as well, right? And then this is the one that's standard edition for book 1 and the black and white 11 by 17 artist edition. So that's, again,
Oh, this is for book 2, right?
Book 2, excuse me. Yeah, Book
Yeah.
2 Standard Edition, Book 2 Artist Edition, black and white.
Awesome.
Yep. And then from here we go into the 9x12 commissioned art pieces. There was a bit of confusion in the first campaign, and there was effectively, that was the thing that made me go, okay, I'm gonna take this tier out because it caused too much confusion, which was with the limited edition from the previous one, I would do these predetermined 4x6 sketch cards, but people still thought that they could come in and request what would be on those sketch cards, and that wasn't scalable. So I had to apologize, and in a way, because it led to that confusion, I tried to accommodate as many people as I could. But this time around, I said 9x12, less commission sketch, and so that did really, really well. I had fun working on those for people. It was across the board. It was the entire gamut of I've never heard of this character to hey, I love this character from your book, just a visual of them. Please do me that one character. So again, it covered the entire spectrum. And finally, I think this entire book is done traditionally, or excuse me, digitally. So I'd never done any traditional art for it, but with this tier, I am going to actually reproduce the cover for book 1, and it'll be effectively a one of one, as if I did the cover traditionally in the first place.
Very cool.
There you go.
Very cool.
Super simple.
Yeah, I like that you went straightforward. I was super giddy to find out that you're teaming up with Iconic Comics because I love the quality, like where they go to get their hardcovers and the print quality, the package quality, everything that Iconic does is just really spot on, phenomenal. They're very, very good at it.
Yeah.
And so
they established for me, I just remember before even book 1, and I think I'd mentioned this the last time that we talked, I knew I wasn't going to be able to do everything on my own. And in a way, Iconic and with Tim Lim, they kind of fell into my lap. And it was an extended conversation with Tim, and he realized that I was very serious about the endeavor of self-publishing, but not just publishing, but doing 6 of them, right? And Tim asked me pretty straightforwardly, hey, who's going to be distributing this thing? Who's going to be fulfilling it? And I said, I had a person in mind. I had a service in mind. He's like, you know what? I like, and this is me paraphrasing, but Tim was like, I really like where you are going. Let me introduce you to the guys who run Iconic, right? And he was, that I think was one of the best things to happen because, as you know, they run everything through a white glove treatment just to make sure everything on the fulfillment / shipping end is as pristine and quality controlled as possible. And
absolutely,
I have nothing but to benefit from that.
Well, and I've got to say, like, Douglas Ernst has been part of the Iconic team for a really long time. So his last campaign that he had, I backed, and I was super excited because he had also teamed up for the Rosary.
Right.
That, I forget the company's name off the top of my head, but getting that package and opening it up and seeing just everything so beautifully packaged and presented, and everything came very, very clean and very protected.
Yep.
And even though the boxes that Iconic ships in also have like your mailing label and everything on them, and that's the outside post, so that's what goes through the mail. Every single time I've ordered from them and I've gotten one, I always compare like the one that I just got to the one that I've kept, that I put everything in, and I'm like, is this one less beat up than the other? I'm gonna switch them out and put them in this one. Like, I'm always just trying to find I want the pristine.
It's so funny that you mentioned that, because as ARC Athena 1 went out and got to people, we were unprepared for how to handle the 11x17 black and white artist edition. So because we were under the gun, Iconic said, hey, listen, we're just gonna have to ship this out in whatever manner is gonna get it there in the safest way possible. We want them to open it, and we even want it to feel like it just came off the factory, the printing factory floor, and directly into their box. But because there is something about that Iconic box, right? There is something sort of like people love being part of that sort of buying experience and supporting experience, that when we sent those blank 11x17 boxes, I got feedback from people going, hey, my box didn't come with a picture on it, with any Iconic Comics branding. And I was like, oh, I underappreciated the value of that from the customers. And so I immediately called Iconic and I said, hey, listen, I'm going to be doing more of these 11 by 17s. I think I should, and selfishly I did it because I saw how cool the traditional boxes were. I was like, I think I should do 11 by 17. And they were more than enthusiastic to jump on board. It's like, really, do you want to do one? It's on you now. Do it quickly because we need to be able to get these out the door.
He's like, oh, if you want to do one, 2 weeks, yeah? You're like, oh, sure, yep, sorry, Tim,
Absolutely.
one second.
do it soon and do it with quality. Look at what we've been doing. And I was like, holy crap, okay.
Yeah.
But it's going to be fun.
I think it's going to be amazing. I'm excited to add that to like my collection of boxes that I have for sure. Again. But I'm also super excited because when I got ARC Athena and I got the artist edition out and I stared at it and was like, it's so beautiful, and I don't know where I'm gonna put it because it doesn't fit in anything I have. And I was like, shit. It's
more,
like it's off to the side.
The 11 by 17 is like the 11 by 17 is more for like, you know, to me, speaking again very selfishly, it's more for like the art nerd in me when I was trying to get better at my craft, having a point of reference of like, oh, how did they do that? You know, what was the technique that they use in order to get that effect? And you know, I guess the irony here is that, you know, ARC Athena is all digital, but it doesn't take away from the technique of how you render something. And so I would hope that as a takeaway, if somebody as an artist has it in their hand, they can look through it and be like, you know, glean some level of process, you know? And that would be, for me, that would be the most ideal situation those things can be used for.
To be perfectly honest, that is exactly why I got it, because while I am nowhere near the caliber of artist that you are, I am trying to find my own artist voice and get better. And one of the biggest struggles that I have personally, because I didn't sit for hours and do, you know, like pose studies and anatomy studies and things like that. My proportions get out of control very quickly, where I'm like, I'm going to have all of this on the canvas, and then I start blocking it out and I go, nope, that's way too big and I can't do anything that I wanted to do because I made it super huge, and then I you know, try again and I'm like, that's still screwed up, and I was like, now it's too small. And so being able to look at artists that you really admire, that, I mean, your style is gorgeous, and the stuff that you produce is just phenomenal. Like,
thank you so much.
Cy and I stalk your Twitter page because of like, oh my gosh, is there new art? Look at how pretty it is.
That's very kind. That's very kind. I mean, but speaking to what you were talking about, each of us are at a certain stage in our journey as far as getting better at our craft, and it doesn't really matter that, you know, there's people I look up to. I'm like, I'm never going to be in that space, right? But the point, I think one of the bigger takeaways that I would say, just based on everything that you've said right now, you're able to self-evaluate to go, oh, that's way too big. That composition is way too, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, you've overdone that page. You've laid it out in such a way that's not necessarily conducive to whatever the picture that you had in your head. That, to me, has more value because that sets you down the path of growth. The people that I really feel sort of like, oh man, I really hope you get there soon, is when they don't know that there's something that's happening in that page that's off, or they can't identify. They don't have the sort of utility, the personal sort of reflection to look at a page and go, that's not it. You know, I can do that better by doing X, Y, and Z. You know, so you're well on your way.
Yay! Yeah. I just got a seal of approval from Canete. I'm happy. I'm good now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm really excited that you have the artist edition, because I feel like that's something that's really cool that you can try to pick apart, and it's not about. I think a lot of people worry that it's like, oh, I'm never going to get there, so there's no point. It's not about competition, but if you never study and you never like research and kind of practice these things, you'll never get there. And in my I've watched so many people draw. I've watched so many draw streams. I've looked at the bones of somebody's art and then what they turn it into. And I'm always like, okay, I understand this. And then I go to do it and I realize, oh, it's not enough to understand it intellectually. you have to have the motor skill there to do it.
Absolutely.
And oh my gosh, my motor skill is terrible right now. Like I tried, I'm like,
that's everybody.
How do they do such perfect curves? And I'm over here looking like I had a seizure halfway through it. They're like in 5. Like I don't.
Journey wise for me, what's strange is that I spent so much time learning how to render. Right, because I love artists like one of the guys who I looked up to growing up, or people like Mark Silvestri and Jim Lee and Kevin Nolan. So all of those are like render. I say this tongue in cheekly, but also in a high level of admiration. But those like very render happy people, Yeah. And then at some point in my career, now the exercise is like, how do I start omitting information and still, or like omitting rendering and still have the same level of information? And that has been the hardest sort of deconstruction of my own work, because I want to make sure you understand the volume of that thing, when somebody could just be like, oh, 3 lines, like Mobius is high on my God tier list, and Mobius is just like, I'll do that in 3 lines, I'm like, oh geez, that sucks so bad that I overthink that.
I do. I totally understand what you're thinking, or what you're saying, because I like when people do this minimalist stuff, and every time I've tried. So I've noticed if I try and I think about it, I'm gonna mess it up. But when I don't think about it, like my favorite piece that I have ever done, I was really emotional and I just said screw it, and I just started throwing paint at a canvas, and then I stepped back and I was like, wow, I actually got exactly the feeling that I wanted to get on the canvas, and I showed other people, and they were like, wow, that actually does convey the feeling, and I went, perfect. Yeah, I couldn't do it again. Like, don't ask, because the emotion's gone now.
That's another challenge too, is the retention. Like you do something feels awesome, now you got to do it 7 more times, 10 more times.
Exactly.
I'm reading that comment from Eric, and he's like, I have to ask, is there something planned for Old Man Strength in the future? And I was so afraid you were going to ask that question, not because there isn't. Not because there isn't, but because, in an ensemble cast, you have to be deliberate about who you want to shine that spotlight on, Old Man Strength gets some of the spotlight put on him in this, by as recently as upcoming as book 2, you have a little bit more insight as to who he is, a light patina of like what's going on with him in regards to this that Eric had picked up on in book 1. The primary characters of this miniseries, however, thematically everything is about, and I think I spoke about this before, which is leadership, accountability, and responsibility, right? And all of that focuses on the two sort of commanding officers, for the lack of a better term, of both ARC Athena and ARC Poseidon, right? So to answer his question, yes, there will be, but in this arc, just forget the pun, but like in this arc, it's primarily focused on Divana and Gristle and how they handle their teams, how they handle leadership, how they handle accountability.
Well, that's awesome. And that was actually something else that Eric was saying that he liked, is how you're kind of focusing on, you kind of focus on 2 characters at a time, or at least the first book, from what he was saying. I obviously haven't read it yet, so I can't really comment too much on it, but focusing on 2 characters and kind of getting into their interactions, and it seems like you're kind of doing it in a way that's not systematic, but that's, it makes sense for the story, because not everyone is going to be in the spotlight 24/7, 365. Like, and truth
to be told, I'm not sophisticated enough of a writer to be able to pull that off. There's plenty of people who know how to juggle characters like that. I'm not one of them, at least not yet. I hope to build into that. So I did things that were out of my comfort zone, because it's the first time I'd ever had to take on the writing reins full time. Thank goodness I have Joe Fulton as an editor, just helping me be invisible guardrails, getting me through this. But I wasn't about to be like, I'll focus on subplot D, E, and F. I was like, I am not that veteran yet, that gristled yet, to be able to pull something like that off.
Well, and I think that even if you pay attention to the Justice League, right? There's all of those characters have their own spotlight, their own series, right?
Yes.
When they're all together, it's not one is always in the front line. Like, granted, you have your front runners because that's just kind of natural. Anytime you have a group of people, you have the people who are natural leaders. But they do a pretty good job, or at least used to do a pretty good job of making sure that it was natural, it was organic, it was, you know, people cycled through in those kind of stories. So I'm excited that you've got your team, and that your team is not like there's this one guy and then all of his minions. It's like no, there's like they're all people. They all have their own thoughts and emotions and feelings and their own conflicts.
Actually, that's a good way to put that. If the theme is what I've explained, right, which is leadership, accountability, and responsibility, what's great about having a supporting cast is that they have an opportunity. Maybe it's not the entire book. Maybe it's only a situation. They have an opportunity to help highlight how that impacts them, and through their perspective, you get through that perspective, you gain access to their character, right? So, like, how would somebody like Old Man Strength understand responsibility and, you know, accountability, right? How does that reflect to how he conducts himself if he knows he's part of a specific team and his role on that team? So it's slight, it's small, but it's there, and I'm glad that, you know, well, first of all, I hope that we can explore more, maybe not in this particular theme, but with him now at the front end of it. We're already working on that. I'm already laying down the bullet points for that, but in this case, just enough.
Well, and see, so coming from, I'm obviously active duty military, and the amount of leadership courses that I have had to endure is extensive. But the one thing that I've noticed that is like a common issue, and granted, it's not really that big of an issue for most people. It's just kind of irksome if you've been in a situation where leadership was a huge focus. And so obviously military, everybody's got to be a leader, but not everyone can be a leader, and some have to be followers and leading from behind, and there's all kinds of weird phrases that they say. The thing that has always irked me is in a lot of these stories where you have a team and they've got a common goal, the leadership is always handled so bizarrely. It's either like nobody ever questions the person in charge, and they're in charge because they're in charge. And I was like, that literally, I don't think it's ever happened. I've been in for 16 years next month. I don't think I've ever once seen like a leader go, this is what we're doing, and not have at least 3 people go, well, wouldn't it be better if we tried this way? Like, it's not human nature for everyone to just go, oh, this person said that that's what we're doing. Okay, that's what we're doing. Especially when you're talking people that are capable, people that are movers and shakers, and that are used to being heroes or used to saving and solving problems. They don't just go with what someone says because someone said it. Yeah, and there's something to be said about that, right? Like, there's the thing that you read into because we see it like, oh, they don't necessarily question leadership. But to me, I always go, there must be, number one, an understanding of the role that you play within the dynamic of that team, but also because there is an inherent and implicit trust in that leadership role. I follow that person because I trust them. And that's actually a great sort of contrast to what happens in ARC Athena versus ARC Poseidon. How Gristle leads versus how Divana leads are two like crazy opposite dynamics, right? One leads because they were told on the casting call sheet, so to speak, you're the leader, right? You're the one with the most followers, and therefore you're going to be the front. You're going to be the front person, you know. Right.
Whereas in the case of ARC Poseidon, it's clear that each and every single one of them are capable. Gristle leads because that trust is there.
Right. Well, and that also gives you a great place to go in future plot points, because if it is based on trust, there will be a moment where, for at least some of your characters, that trust would make sense that it could potentially falter slightly.
For sure.
All of a sudden, you know, one of my favorite series ever, thanks to CY, is Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. Right?
Amazing.
Everybody trusts Major. Everyone trusts Major because she's proven. She's led. She's proven that this is how we get through it. and everybody has trusted her, right? And I remember in the series that we just wrapped up, because Cy had me binge watch them all with him, because I had never actually sat down and watched them. And
Sure.
there's this very significant moment where Major starts to have a conflict within herself.
Sure.
And her calls start to not make sense to her team.
Right.
And then
Right.
her team is looking at her and going, normally she's super on point, but something's off. And they
Yeah.
start questioning her. They start questioning if she's still
Sure.
in the right mindset to lead and things like that. And that's a natural response to something
For
like
sure.
that. So
For sure.
giving the, okay, I lead because I was told to, that gives you a plot point of what happens when you're no longer told to.
Right.
What
Perfectly
happens if
said.
somebody else gets told to? Are you just going to step down because now there's a
perfectly
new,
said. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or the trust, and that's what I love, is that you actually put that in there, because a lot of people have just said, well, they're the leader because they're the leader, and you're like,
Right. Right.
Okay, but-
I'm leveraging that quote unquote leadership as part of that story, right? So
Right.
I cannot wait to get into issue 3 and issue 4, because
I'm so
the
excited.
if it's bombastic for in issue 1, I cannot wait for you to see the 4th issue.
oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Krager says Eric is one of my favorite artists. That his work is a must-have. Love the art editions.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yes. I'm like, Cy, we're gonna have to start reviews like in another week. Like, this next week is gonna be crazy, but like, I don't know, Wednesday we might have some time. Maybe we're gonna have to knock out a couple of reviews.
Noted.
The thing is Eric is doing this. So you're running 30-day campaigns because you're fulfilling with Iconic.
I am, yeah. And not only that, not just because of the fulfillment, but because unlike other books, and I can't find too many other, I'm not saying mine is unique in this space, but I can't find too many other examples that is in a miniseries format in which each book leads into the next one. So one of the potential landmines that I could step across if I don't release these books at a more frequent cadence is that my fear is that you'll forget the story and the feeling that you got when you read the end of book 1, and then hopefully at the end of book 2, right, where you're like, oh my gosh, that was so great. I can't wait until the next one. And if I were to ask you to wait 6 months, I know people are incredibly patient, but I don't want them to. Right? I don't want them to be patient. I want them to be enthusiastic and just like super impatient for them to get book 3, because that means the momentum is there. That means I'm fulfilling on that promise of the end of each book, right? Which is the cliffhanger, So that's the other reason, which is to say, I do these 30-day campaigns with no in demand because I want to get the next book out into your hands as quickly as possible, so that you can continue to get the story. If you're super into it, you can continue to get that story.
That's awesome. Normally we totally rag on people who are not going to go in demand because, hey, you're leaving money on the table. And normally, running a shorter campaign, most people don't have a reason behind it other than, I don't know, I just thought 30 days sounded better than 60 or whatever. But, looking at what you're building, considering the fact that you're fulfilling in what is it, 4 months? It's like a 4-month time frame. Okay.
That's what it says on the campaign. Yeah. We try to do it sooner then.
Right. So if you're looking at every 4 months, you're wrapping a book and getting ready for the next one.
Yeah.
If I miss out on book 2, or if book 3 is like a flash campaign and I got super busy and I blink and now it's over, at least I don't have the, oh my gosh, it's going to be a year and a half before the next one comes out and I'm just screwed. Right. It's okay. It sucks. I'm going to be a little bit behind the curve, but I only have a couple of months that I have to wait, and I can just
for sure
really make sure that I'm tuned in, that I don't miss that next one.
Yeah.
So,
knowing my limitations, because it's not a monthly book, it's not a floppy, you're getting hardcover, it's 64 pages in total. It's a level of bells and whistles that I would hope that, at least for me, I wouldn't want to put behind like some kind of stretch goal, whatever, like the campaigns for stretch goals. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to come out the gate with everything that I would want as a consumer, as a customer, to be like, whoa, I really feel like I got my money's worth out of this, just from the production end, perspective, and not even just supporting the creator from the writing/art perspective, right? Like, I wanted that to be out there with the same level of enthusiasm that a hardcore fan of an old school book that when I used to collect, that's the same feeling that I got. I was like, I gotta wait a month until I find out what the heck happened. That's not accessible to me, but I'm gonna try to find a way to just narrow that divide between, first book, second book, and third book. That way you can maintain excitement.
Well, and I think for especially this industry where we're used to waiting, I've backed so many projects on Indiegogo, and I've gone back and looked at how many of them are over a year late.
Sure.
And I'm just like,
Sure.
I have been waiting for some of these books for 2+ years. You're like, 4 months. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so quick. Like, that's just like right around the corner.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not people are going to just set up expectation and deliver in whatever capacity they want to, right? They feel like something needs a little bit more polish, it takes a little bit more time. Here's the expectation that you set with people, and yada, yada, yada. I mean, like, but for me, the bar is Tim Lim, right? Tim is just cranking, right? And it's so difficult.
Hard bar.
I'm telling you, it is difficult to keep up with that particular racehorse, because not only is his turnaround great, his success is, for me, is wonderful to be sort of in the audience just watching, right? Yeah. So when he sets that bar, and Doug has had the opportunity, Doug Ernst with Soulfinder has had the opportunity to set the ground in front of him and define success, what success looks like for his projects. I'm sitting here going like, those guys are the ones I'm using as a point of reference. It's their playbook that I'm trying to implement and live to, because we're all under this one Iconic Comics umbrella. So everybody has they set up their different expectations, but for me, the point of reference, the true north that I'm using as what I consider to be a metric of success, is to release this book as consistently as Tim has with Comet America. And I've told him that multiple times, and he's often embarrassed by it.
Oh, that's great. Embarrass the crap out of Tim. By the way, I've been trying to convince Tim to come on for I don't even know how long. Oh, and he's just like, well, I'm just kind of busy. And I'm like, I know, but will you just talk to me about your book? Because holy shit, dude. Like, I started reading the Black Hops. Yeah. So I got well into that omnibus. And I think I read until 3 or 4 in the morning and was like, I have work. I should probably go to sleep. But it's good storytelling. It's interesting. It's entertaining. The art is phenomenal. And so I was just like, Tim, just talk to me. Like, damn it. But he is so focused on getting his books out.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, Eric said it in chat right now, which is like from end of from campaign launch into his hands, and that's a month's worth of campaigning, right? End of that is 30 days, right? And in about 2 months thereafter, Eric says he got his book, and that's the pace that for me, that's the pace I'm trying to set.
That's awesome.
So if it people point to ARC Athena and its delivery schedule and going, how come and nobody else is doing it? I'm like, that's a bit unfair. That's not what they set out to do. That's what I'm setting out to do. I think, if I fall short of that, then the criticisms should be all focused on that, my inability to set up the right expectation. But to set it for other people, I don't know if that's all that fair.
Well, and everybody's got their own kind of limitations to it as well, and so you gotta take all of that into consideration. But I agree with Eric. I love your fulfillment schedule as it is currently, and
Thank you.
I hope that you maintain it, because that's super exciting. Warren asked this question a little bit ago, and I just want to make sure we got back to it. He says, what inspired you to make this series hardcover?
Yeah, that's a great. Actually, that's a very, very good question. Again, it's understanding the landscape of what's been set up as far as crowdfunding, audience, buyers, supporters, expectations are, right? It's been going out, in the past, it's been okay to sort of have like a floppy or maybe a more premium version of a floppy in hand. And I thought, like, as a person who's sort of, I identify myself as being a little late to the game when it comes to crowdfunding. I'm like, how do I establish some kind of footing in this space when people have had such a great head start? An audience has become sort of built into their brand, built into their stories. And one of the things that I had seen was, I think I mentioned it just as like 2 seconds ago or 2 minutes ago, was like, oh, they're putting things in. It's not a paywall, but it's like these stretch goals. Hey, if we cross this particular stretch goal, we'll put the the UV effect on it, or we'll make it into a hardcover and we'll upgrade the paper and yada yada yada. I'm like, as a person who's going to be supporting me at that price point, effectively not necessarily a boutique book, but certainly not like a traditional book that you see on the stands. I think I want to give you everything up front, I would rather you understand when you're holding the book, this is where my money went, right? Not just, obviously the art, hopefully, right? Hopefully the story, but also just in the product, when you're holding it in your hand, you're like, whoa, this feels really, really good. Because that's the feeling that I get anytime that I pick up something that's of a hardcover. And I really do believe I got my money's worth out of it, and it doesn't sit on a pile, it sits on a shelf, and that is a big deal for me.
Well, and I like that, and that's another thing that I think maybe not everybody fully understands. Anything coming out of Iconic now, if Iconic is fulfilling it, it's coming in a hardcover. That is their bog standard, because because they made those connections and worked their butts off to make that a possibility. But I agree with you. When I get my hands, especially when it's an indie comic, there's something about when it's an indie comic and I get to hold the creation from someone that, like, I've talked to on YouTube. I've messaged on Twitter, and I have their book in my hand, and it isn't just a floppy. It's a hardcover. It's something that I feel like I could go and pick up at Barnes and Noble. Like,
yeah, sure.
It elevates it so much, and it can be difficult to do because it's not necessarily budget friendly for a lot of people. So if you can get into the right circles and make that a thing, that's absolutely phenomenal. But it does definitely kind of set you apart as far as quality goes.
Yep. And not only that, but
competition.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off. And not only that, because as a supporter of my book, of the project, right? When you get it, I want you to be proud that you supported it. Right? Like,
absolutely.
I helped this come to fruition. I am now holding it. I am so proud to have been part of this entire process, right? I know I'm ahead of the curve when it comes to printing. So if, some people is like, oh, that feels a little disingenuous because the books were already sort of locked and loaded into the Iconic Comics delivery canon, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that you helped bring it to life. So now when you're holding, you're like, whoa, I really have very proud to have been part of the experience. At least that's one of my hopes.
Well, and regardless of who you manage to get to fulfill or publish, the success of each campaign really does dictate its future. So if all of a sudden you stopped hitting funding goals, I don't know how that would ever even remotely be possible, but let's just pretend that we're going to be in a world where we're not going to jinx it happened. No, seriously, Eric, really, like, please. Anyway, if something were to happen and you were to stop hitting funding goals out of the blue, that's going to be something that's going to resonate with Iconic, and it's going to be, maybe we need to reevaluate. What is it about this that isn't working? And that's how people get dropped from publishers. That's how
sure.
That's how things take a back seat and end up having to be reevaluated and kind of refurbished.
Sure.
And
sure. That's a perfect word.
So regardless of who it is that is backing, anytime you go and back a campaign, you're telling that creator that they've created something that you want to continue to happen and you want to be a part of every time. So it's always important. It doesn't matter who the creator is. It's always important.
Yeah.
Eric has a great question. So when issue 6 releases, will there be an omnibus or a slipcase where all the books can be neatly contained?
Okay, so full disclosure, the books are being designed for that slipcase. If you take a look at the spine for issue 1 and issue 2, it's as uniform as you can be, so you understand where in its order you have to read it so that you get the full reading experience. You know, we don't get as fancy as, you know, putting one continuous image down the length of the spine, so when they're all sort of side by side, it makes like an image. It's nothing like that at all, where it's a bit more traditional, but obviously it was high on clarity and high in uniformity. That way the audience can read it. Now, whether or not we are going to be able to find a way to get that slipcase to you to house 6 books, that's going to be a challenge. And I've kicked that can down the road, Shae, now, like for 4 months now. I have literally, somebody has asked me, we need to start designing that slipcase if you want it, because manufacturing, as you know, is getting a little bit more competitive out there, getting a little bit more challenging. And the longer I wait, first of all, every possibility could happen that it won't be done in time, right? We're going to blink and issue 6 is set to come out by Q1 of 2023. Right, so we need to go. Like right now, we need to start talking.
Yeah,
about
you need to like go like 2 months ago. Holy hell!
Right. And who's to say that, you know, now it starts to become a conversation about, okay, not only is it about the manufacturing of it, but how do we get it into people's hands where it's not going to cost an arm and a leg, right? And on that note, whenever somebody brings up to me, hey, Eric, are you ever going to do this as an omnibus? There is a cost prohibitiveness nature to like omnibuses that prevents it from being unlikely to get to the kinds of people, or at least have it be scalable enough to get to kind of the people who actually want it. Right now, we have a very limited sort of set of regions of the world that we deliver to, and by we I mean like Iconic, because we know predominantly our customers come from those regions, right? We've been getting really, I think, useful feedback to be like, I can't wait for you to have this thing available in, where don't we go, like Sweden or Ireland. I'm like, I feel really bad that we can't deliver it to those people, but I can't imagine what it would take to have all of this connected into a level of polish as we've sort of established with 6 hardcover books now in an omnibus, and have it be somewhere near the realm of affordable. It's going to be damn near possible, you know. Yeah. So yes, we have plans, but we will see how quickly I can get my butt in gear to get those plans working out.
You have plans and you have significant concerns that go along with them.
Concerns is the best word, a very conservative word for it. Yeah.
Look, I do marketing and branding. Like that's part of our bread and butter. So you ever need help framing something, you let me inside, bro.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness. I'm super excited for this. I really like. So one of the things that I love probably the most about your art is your chosen color palettes that you use, because
sure.
I can't stand when people like take really vibrant, beautiful colors like this magenta or whatever, and they mute it because they're like, oh, but you know, if there was this blue light coming in, it would probably be more purple. And I'm like, this is boring and dull, and why are you doing this? Like, no, make it bright and bold and you know, hot pink and make it feel that kind of fire. Like I want to feel, and I want to feel the contrast, which you do so well, where you're taking these really cool tones and then you throw in really, really warm tones with them, or really bright oranges and pinks and stuff that just kind of disrupt it. And you blend them together in such a way that it's one of those things that I want to sit and stare at for hours. Like I love it because they're so pretty. Even the character that I cosplayed the last time we had you on. Yeah. It was really important to me to try and get that hair right. And so I sat there with the blue hairspray to get this color blue. And then I was like, there's a pink stripe I have to have the pink stripe because
Sure.
that is like, it's almost become like a signature for you.
Sure.
In the
sure.
the color palettes that you're drawn to.
Yeah, yeah. That's
so
you know, I don't
it's
want to take
exciting.
100% credit, but thank you for that. I don't want to take 100% credit. There's a lot of, I would say, like synchronicity between me and the colorist, the kid, and I say kid really accurately. His name is Giuliano Paratelli. He's the person has the unenviable task of making sense of any and all of my stuff, right? He's working on he's coloring issue 3 right now. And I'll tell you, without showing you any art from it, he's like, is this blood or snow? And I'm like, yep, it's both of those. You get to decide which that is a blood splatter or snow. And I don't envy him. As a matter of fact, the fact that he has hated me by now and completely quit the project, I'm so very grateful. So in the case of that cover, right, or even in the case of the character design that you're cosplaying right now, Jules came up with all of that. On the
that's
page,
awesome.
I had no idea how that was going to work until Jules goes, does this color palette work? I'm all like, yes, we're going to continue doing that from here on down.
You're
right?
like, yeah, that's exactly what I had envisioned. I had absolutely no idea, but that's what I want now. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, when he misses, he doesn't miss by much. So let's use this cover as an example. His first approach was very local color, right? So the Empress that's in the background to, you know, both Divana and Gristle in the foreground, it was like he colored it very, like I said, with just local traditional color, what their costumes were. And we both looked at it when he delivered it, and we both agreed, like, this isn't it. And so we started playing around, and finally we both like, what if we just put her in absolute blue? And the way Jules thought of it, it was like she's underwater and she's coming, like the vision of her is getting scrimmed out by the atmosphere because of the water. I'm like, try that. And when he applied this, I might have gone in there and added like that metal sheen on the back of Gristle's, bicep and the back of his whatever, like that white, that really hot white, just so he pops forward a little bit more. That's probably as much sort of notes that I gave him outside of this original color palette. This original approach wasn't working, but he's so good. So thank you for the compliment, but I would probably volley that over to Jules's computer and be like, you know what you're doing, kid. So let's keep doing that for 4 more issues.
Well, you let him know that we approve because it makes it incredibly eye-catching to look at, and you know, with the way that you have the character designs and the little details that he chooses to throw in there from a color perspective, it makes everything feel really cohesive. You know, everything has this really cool kind of. It feels cool. It feels like what any 80s, 90s kid is going to be like, that's badass, though. Like, that's it. that's it.
Yeah, he was... First couple times that he tried the pages, because I did test other people, and with him being the third, and he was doing, something conservative. And I said, this is not what I saw off of your samples. And he was like, oh, I was kind of basing it off of, I think he had seen something of mine already. And I'm like, no, do your color do the samples that I saw online. And he did. And now I continuously hold him accountable to the palette that he has developed, right? So the opening shot of book 3, I don't want to go into it, but the opening shot of book 3, he had done a palette, and I was like, I think you're not living up to the thing that you had set up. He went back and he rolled his eyes. I think he rolled his eyes and was like, okay, fine, I'll go back. And man, oh man, that opening shot is just like, this is important, right? This opening shot, and I can't wait for people to be like, oh, that is so shitty that you did that, you know?
Oh, that's exciting. I like hearing that, like, oh, you ass. Be like, yes. Oh, I know it's going to be good then. So I wanted to do a refresh because I think we had a couple of people who had backed.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
It's 29:31 now.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all of that. Thank you.
So you've got 18 days left. And for anyone who's just now joining, who got here a little bit late, there is no in demand, there is no extension. Because Mr. Canete is on a time crunch of getting this stuff out to us. So get it now. Or wait 4 months and get it with book 3.
Right.
while all
And
of your
book-
friends read and then make fun of you for not knowing what's happening.
Is it weird that I kind of selfishly want to see that happen, where people are like, "You missed out on campaign 1 and 2? You crazy? Now you're going to have to wait until campaign 3." You know?
Exactly. No, I think it's great. I think that's actually
malicious.
kind of hilarious. It's like, I don't know why you waited. Like,
Yeah.
kind of dumb. You should have got in on it earlier.
The only reason I bring that up is, again, because I can reflect back on when I was a kid and I was collecting those issues, and when something would sell out on the stands, and the next day people would come into, this was late high school or whatever it was, and like, dude, they didn't have any copies left. I'm all like, I got one if you want to read mine. That kind of that feeling of like I was there when the thing hit the stands, and I know there's a limited amount, and I know there's a quickly closing window, and I need to be one of the first people who reads it. I want that same level of excitement and enthusiasm.
Yeah, well, and I think there's something about this whole comic scene. Like, people are we're really competitive for that exclusivity. Yeah. We're competitive to have the best collection, or to be the first one to read something, or like that's just, it's ingrained in this culture. I joined this culture way late in life, and even I've got it where I'm like, oh, you didn't have that issue? Oh, I got that issue. Well, look at you. I guess you're not a real fan.
It's also, like, I think in theme and in the spirit of what Eric was going through is like, there's a certain level of pride when, I'll speak for myself, when I'm the one that saw that really minuscule thing that turned out to be a much bigger thing later on, where I'm like, I picked up on that and you guys missed it, and I was there, and I had I have the proof, I had the receipts in my YouTube, in my YouTube review, I saw it, and now it's actually being played up by X, Y, and Z, so I love that.
Oh yeah, well, and especially because it's so, depending on what kind of things you're interested in. For me, I love analysis, and especially when it's analyzing character, whether it's analyzing actual people or it's analyzing characters that people have written. I like writing and I like analyzing. Those are my two things. And so being able to read something and being like, this was really cool, and I think the reason it was so impactful was because of this, and like half of my friends are like, yeah, it was good. And I'm like, well, you suck. I'm the same way. Like, it was more than good.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. It almost ruins the experience because I'm sitting there like trying to see how the sausage is made, rather than being like, this is really good. This feels really good. I was on board for the ride, and I hope that in some capacity, people feel that as well, where you can just take it and go, oh my gosh, he never took his foot off of the gas pedal. I understood, not necessarily related to, because ultimately that's not my goal. You understood each character's motivation and why they were conducting themselves, and they spoke with their own, unique voice, right? Whereas I don't like it when characters all kind of talk like each other,
That's weird.
I've never met like clones in real life. Why would I, as far as speech pattern is concerned, why would I ever want to write anything about them?
Right.
But then also, if you take a step back and, to go on what you and I were just talking about right now, to go sort of like a tiny bit, one layer below the surface, you're like, I get it. I understand why they conduct themselves like that, and here's so much more information about them. That's why I went to the nth degree of physicality, right? Because that's their personality. That's how they express frustration or blah 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 blah. So
that's always something that I love, is being able to look in and understand the characters a little bit more, because then the next time they get put in a situation, I'm like, I bet you this happens,
right?
And everyone else is like, how are you even coming to that conclusion? You're like, well, because you remember 3 books back when they did this thing. Well, that was kind of like a telling moment for this moment right now, and everyone's like. Why are you looking at it like that? And you're like, because this is what I do, okay? I look at people and I go, why do you react the way you do?
And also because that was the author's intention, right? They laid down that little kernel of information, not in hopes of it having to come to like full bloom, right, in that issue, but because they're laying it down for you, X amount of issues down the line, which is something that I aspirationally want to do if, when we continue this series beyond 6.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. So, do we want to before we go back and check again, CY, do you have any questions or any comments that you've
Yeah,
wanted
man,
to
we've been
say
doing
since
all the
you've been
talking,
super
dude.
quiet?
You've been doing the talking for both of us, babe. It's absolutely fun.
I do that a lot.
I was really excited to see someone's question in the chat related to you having worked on Tron. I fucking love Tron.
Yeah, I did. That was one of the rare times where I felt like I don't know why they asked me to come and hang out on this show. That entire crew, Alberto Mielgo, and I don't know if you know Alberto's work, but across the board from environment designer to prop designer to storyboard designer. And this was still in, I forgot the name of the building on the Disney campus where we still had to pitch our storyboards traditionally. So that had been the first time that I'd ever been involved in that kind of exercise where I remember I was the last holdover to do everything traditionally, so I was still rendering everything in markers. And the day came when the executives were there, from directors to supervising coordinators, like everybody, the script writers, and they took all of my boards, photocopied them, and pinned them down the hallway. And I don't know what they were expecting because it's old school Disney way of pitching a storyboard, but a boys action adventure like Tron, every beat is drawn out. Every beat has to be drawn out because for the animatic, and my storyboards ran the length of the freaking. I mean, everybody's did, but mine. I remember seeing it, and it ran the length of this long ass hallway, and I had to sit there with like a pointer, and like point to each section of the board because again, it was tradition over there to be like, and then Tron jumps down here and he throws a disc and boom, pew pew pew, you know. Like I was doing that
oh my
for like,
gosh, sound
and then
effects, yes.
we took a break because we had to for lunch, and then came back for another hours where I pitched that board. And what was great is because it was so organic, and again, this just helped me level up my storytelling chops, where everybody would just be walking around. They'd let you pitch it the first time, and the next 3 or 4 hours is everybody walking around with Post-it notes and like this shot instead, and they would just stick it onto your boards. This is probably a better shot, or like this, or like this. So that was a lot of learning, not just from a professionalism standpoint, but how those guys conducted themselves when it came to their shots. So thank you to them for inviting me over and letting me participate.
That's awesome.
That's actually really cool because you don't get that kind of feedback anymore.
Oh yeah.
Like
yeah.
I love, that was one of the funniest things is I give like writing or something, right? I've given writing to some of my friends, and the closest I got to any kind of decent feedback was, "Is there more?"
Yeah.
But everything before that,
That's encouraging
I'd give them,
still, right?
Right. Like I'd give them something and they just go, "Wow." And I was like, "That's it? Like that's all you got for me? I bared my soul in this." And they're like, "That's dark. Do you need a hug?" And I'm like,
Right.
I mean, I guess if it makes you feel like I need a hug and I'm on the brink, then it's like good as far as conveying depression, but shit,
Sure.
that's all that you have to give me. And so
Yeah,
having
yeah.
people that are going, okay, so I like what you're doing and I see where you're going, but you know, honestly, this would be better. Nix that, put this in there, and it's like,
Yeah.
that's invaluable. That is epic.
Yeah, and the way they worked was never like, I don't ever remember having shots shut down, right? Which sometimes people will go like, oh, they changed the shot completely. Doesn't that feel like they're just negating all of your work? No, a good director, a good supervising director, an executive producer understands what you're going for and knows how to turn the screw so you land it better. They don't throw out shots wholesale. The drawings are really ultimately don't mean anything, right? It's the idea behind that's happening with the drawing and how you're communicating it. So half of the time, my supervising director, executive producer, like what's great about that crew is they were multi-tiered in as far as their craft was concerned. So I was never shy or like defensive to somebody like Alberto Mielgo. And by the way, I think he just got his film nominated in the Academy Award, whatever it was. He was one of the key guys that started up Spider-Verse. But Alberto would come in and take a look at a shot and goes like, probably like this. I understand what you're going for. The theme was always and also, right? And it's always like +1. How do we land that? I know what you're going for. It's strong. but this is, I think we can do a little bit more by doing this, which to me was an amazing, I think is an amazing experience. And I'm so glad that I was emotionally, professionally ready for something like that, because if I had gotten that job in my 20s, I'd be so defensive about everything. You know, I'd not want you to change my shot because that is such an affront to me, blah, 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 blah. You're young and, you know, you don't have too many professional notches on your belt. You're overprotective over everything. And you're older. I'm all like, I don't care. Tell me how that works. You know, how do I make the shot better?
Like, you know what I'm trying to say. Help me say it. And see, that's another thing that CY and I have talked quite a bit about. That's why I really wish that more people would get good editors who are going to look at what they've got and say, I know what you're going for. Yeah. I think that you're losing the plot right here. I think that this part right here muddies those waters. And if instead of doing this, you did that, that would help. And I've worked with a couple different people trying to help edit. And that's one of the reasons I love working with Jason, who has done Absolute books 1 and 2. So working with Jason, and I'm like, hey, so this is what you had. This is what I think you should change it to. And he was like, yep, change it. And I'm like, yeah? Like, seriously? Like, this is your baby. And he's like, no, that's better. Do that. And I was like, thank you for, you know, listening, like making this a team effort, because that's exactly, I want his books to do well.
And at its core, that's what you're looking for. Yeah. That's the reason why when you build a team, it's not about, you know, sort of highlighting what I'm doing, at least not in the narcissistic sense, right? It's about like, you got, you know, we're a part of the team and I trust you to do your job. I remember in talking with Joe about the first issue, actually I showed him the outline and the rough script for 5 issues worth of ARC ATHENA. And he said something to me, because I think he was being very careful, having never worked with each other before. He was careful about exactly, you know, overstepping that editorial process, right? Like, you never know with certain people how you work with each other. And so Joe said something that I laugh at now. He's like, Eric, I'm never going to ask you to redraw pages or draw, you know, something different. I'm like, why? Like, I can draw the pages pretty fast if it makes a story. If you and I agree that redrawing segments makes it work better, why wouldn't I just redraw it? Because it's in service to the story that both you and I are helping to stand up. And I've never been shy, and thankfully neither is he these days, about like, we're not landing that very well, right? We've got to go back and polish that just a tiny bit more. And I remember this relationship between Devon and Gristle. He was like, I know, Eric, this is what you explained to me, but we're not landing it. I'm like, Joe, I'm way ahead of you. I've actually started redrawing or adding certain pages so that we land that more. And he's like, oh, thank gosh, because I didn't know how I was going to have that conversation with you, you know? Cool. Let's do that more. That's
Joe's awesome. Like, he's got a good eye for that kind of stuff, for sure.
Collaborative and invisible, right? Like, it's so weird how he can be the same, you can occupy those two soft skills at the same time.
Well, and that's the thing is, you know, when you're looking for a good editor, you're not looking for somebody who's trying to put their stamp on your story, because that's not what you're paying them to do.
Right.
A good editor is going to say, so this is your story. This is what I think you're trying to say, and this is this is where it's getting muddy, or this is where things don't make sense. This is where we need to fix things.
Yep.
That's what a good editor does. And if you're looking for somebody who's just going to tell you that everything that you wrote is golden, you're not looking for an editor. You're looking for a hype man. Yeah. If you're going to look for somebody who's going to tell you that everything you did is shit, you're not looking for an editor. You're looking for somebody who's a masochistic person who's just trying to make your life difficult. What you want is that good give and take that isn't trying to take over your project, isn't trying to beat you down and make you feel like a piece of shit. Yep. But, you know, this is definitely that's what a good editor does. And I love hearing people say, like, oh yeah, my editor was like, yeah, we're not landing this. We gotta fix that. And you're like, oh yeah, I agree. That's garbage. Okay, cool. Let's fix that. Let's do that.
Yeah. He's genuinely surprised sometimes when he's like, I went in and wrote like I can't remember the exact context. I remember, you know, he's like, I went in and wrote something that I think helps better capture this thing that you're trying to go for based on our conversation. I looked at it. It was all in red. I'm all like, yeah, okay, that works. And he goes like, don't you want to like kind of like switch it up? Is there changes? Is there?
Is
I'm
there
like,
like a back
no,
and forth?
No, their character is supposed to talk like, and the reason why is because he already wrapped his brain around how that the mannerisms of that character based on our original conversation. He was just holding me accountable to the way I wrote it. And he's like, I think there's a better way that we land character by just doing this tiny shift. And I'm like, cool. Like, we're not going to talk about it. I'm like, no, that totally works. Let's move on.
Yeah,
I got 20 other pages to draw.
That's the same relationship that I had with Jason, where I was like, hey, I think this, and he was like, yeah, do it. And I was like,
yep,
okay, I'll just go change your book then.
Absolutely.
It's like, I'm just gonna change this section. I feel really weird. And he's like, why? You're doing your job. And I'm like,
yeah, that's
I know,
the job.
but I've tried doing this job for other people, and I've had other people be like, well, that's not really what I'm going. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Like, I'm not the one to hire, because I'm not going to sit here and be like, it's great. And be like, it's okay.
Right.
You have some good things here. Like, absolutely. I'm going to tell you what isn't good. So this is just, it's so exciting, because you've got such an awesome team behind you. Yeah. You have such a passion and a clear vision, and you're awesome. Like,
thank you. More than anything, I can't believe. When did I start this whole thing? Probably I've lost track. It's all just one muddy mess to me. But it's been a while, right? And the fact that I'm still enthusiastic about book 6, as I'm penciling the tail end of book 6, I'm looking at it going like, oh my gosh, please let me know how to draw this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to draw this thing in the corner, I'm that still sort of watering at the mouth, waiting. There's not enough hours in the day for me to continue. I want to get a block of 8 hours per day just so I can draw the pages. And that to me is a significant, notable uptick from where I was back when I was still trying to make headway into mainstream comics. Now I'm that much more zoned in, and again, enthusiastic is the best word that I think best captures it. I run out of steam early in the process because I get bored. Like, I've kind of figured out the pieces, but with this one, because I'm still learning so much, not just on the drawing end, but obviously on the crowdfunding end, and getting an opportunity to talk to people like you and reaching out to other. There's so many things that keep me engaged that I feel like I can't believe I'm lasting this long.
I like what Shadowpunk just said. He said, I feel better now. If that happens to Eric, I don't feel so bad. Well, and I think that one of the biggest things for why people are so drawn to you, aside from the fact that you are just a phenomenal talent and a very good storyteller, you're a very genuine person. Like, I
try to. Yeah.
Hearing you talk, and every time we've had you, this is the second time we've had you on, and I'm already like, okay, so you have a rough idea about when you're going to be launching all these. Let's just get you on the books from now through January.
That would be awesome.
So we're good.
Yeah,
and you think I'm kidding,
awesome.
but I'm actually going to ask you once we're off stage.
Yeah.
Backstage, I'm asking.
I'd love to.
The thing is you're such a genuine person. Like, you don't blow smoke up people's asses. You're sitting here talking about, like, yeah, these are the things that I stumbled on. These are the things that I worry about. These are the things that I'm constantly trying to focus on and improve on. And I love hearing from you, because this is what it helps me do. All of that, just it like endears you to your audience. It makes everybody just go like, well, shit, he's talented and, a pro and all of this stuff, and he's fucking relatable and nice, and, like, I could go get a beer with this guy and, like, be happy. Like, shit, that's awesome.
That's very kind. That's very kind. Although, this level of genuineness, I wish there was a gear that I could shift into in regards to just, like, overall energy. Because I know there's some things that require that level of hype, and, man, I don't have that engine. I maintain... like a tone that people are like, whoa, I almost can listen to you and fall asleep. I'm like, that's a positive, I guess, I don't get hyped too much. I don't elevate a tone. I don't elevate an energy.
I don't think that would be you, though. I think that you coming on shows like this where I can fangirl out and CY can get super excited about, things that you've been involved in, and we can bring that, and you just keep this level of like zen. It's like kind of what you like operate in perma zen.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's part Zen. I think two parts exhaustion. I think that's what it is. That's why
that's
I can't.
fair. You have no idea. I fake all of this energy. Do you know how fucking tired I am right now?
Yeah.
I have pounded
but
3 monsters today to get
Oh
through
my
this.
gosh.
So this is
gosh.
just how we do.
Thank you for having me on. This is great.
Absolutely. I wanted to do one last little refresh. See that other little bump that we got. Look at that. You
Well
were almost
done.
at 23.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
Thank you,
so
everybody.
exciting.
Thank you. It means so much to me. We missed somebody had mentioned that they were backer X, and I had missed personally thanking them, but allow me to do now. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely. This is amazing as always. We're definitely gonna make sure we get you back on.
That cosplay is amazing. Holy cow!
Thank you.
Well
I
done,
sent you
and
pictures
thank
too.
you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sai, do you have any parting words?
No, I've just been throwing out answers to questions that have been going Eric's way about Tron and the people he worked with.
I saw Charlie's name out there. Charlie was the supervising director for the show. Robert Valley was the head character designer. That because of his chops, he became a director as well. And then there's Shae, who is the director that I dealt with on a day-to-day for the episodes that I worked on. So there was a talented group of people. The concept artist team, however, those guys are feature film level painters and designers, and I can't imagine. I would open up the folders of their deliveries every week, and I go, "What am I doing in this show? What am I doing
I
here?"
don't
And it's.
here.
I remember opening up. Well, Alberto sets the tone, right? And if you don't know Alberto's work, please go look them up. But Alberto sets the tone as far as what the quality bar is, the expectation, because he's such a hard worker and he's so meticulous about his composition and design. But when you open up a folder that says Craig Mullins on it, I'm like, what the heck is this? What am I doing working on this production? You know?
Oh,
Anyway,
Eric
super
Canete
humbling,
has imposter
and I'm very, very
syndrome.
grateful.
I love that you just openly admitted to having imposter syndrome in certain situations. That makes me feel so much better.
It keeps you humble, right? Like
the good ones always do.
As good as you think you are, something always checks you to make you go, right, there's something else to aspire to, which is super helpful for me.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on. As always, love chatting with you. It's always a phenomenal time.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you.
Dude, absolutely. And the chat, you guys are phenomenal. We love you to death. Please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to Red Valkyrie. Consider becoming a member. There is backstage pie, or so I've heard. And I also have to say a huge, huge thank you to my amazing co-host, CY.borg. You bust your butt and you make these things possible so I can spend, hours gluing and painting instead of having to do all of the behind the scenes stuff. So thank you so much for everything.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Love you guys to death, and we will see you next time. Have a wonderful night.
Have a great evening.
Bye.